r/ask Reddit. What is the shittiest city you've visited only once and completely refused to return? Colorado City, Arizona. Stopped for gas. All the locals stopped what they were doing and watched our every move. Nobody would speak to us even after we said hello. Strange. Never stop in Colorado City. I used to drive through there on my way from home to college. Colorado City is full of polygamist cultists started by Warren Jeffs and are totally insular. Their society is rife with abuse and pedophilia. I would always feel so bad for the women in their pioneer style dresses and giant 80s braids. They would sometimes come up to our Walmart and there was always one man watching over his horde of women and children as they did everything for him. It's a truly terrifying place. I highly suggest watching Prophets Pray. Great documentary about this place and ducked up cult. I've heard of way too many people who go out of their way to tour my hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania because it's the setting for the Office sitcom. Only problem is, Scranton is known for 3 things: political corruption, crippling debt, and The Office. They didn't even film the show here, just the establishing shots for the intro. Needless to say, they all wasted their time and mine by tying up traffic. Agra, India. The Taj Mahal was one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life, but the surrounding city is an absolute shithole. The fact that a horrible, grimy, incredibly poor entire city surrounds the pristine walls of the Taj made it a weird place to visit. 2. I agree, it was the pits. Throw in regular power cuts even at a decently rated hotel every few hours along with hawkers selling complete shit. It was wank. East St. Louis. It's every shitty ghetto stereotype rolled into one. My friend was a doctor in East St. Louis and he had to treat 8-year-old kids addicted to meth. Hollywood. What a shithole. For those that don't know, the Hollywood Boulevard that you know is about 2 blocks long. It is lined with washed up actors in costume who try to get in the back of your pictures and then yell at you when you refuse to tip them. My uncle punched an Elvis impersonator in the face once when my family went to visit this place. Your uncle is a patriot. Gary, Indiana. It's Chicago's toilet. I knew a Marine who said he'd rather go back to Tikrit than back to Gary. He also has a great story about pumping gas at a gas station when he hears a noise he recognizes, off in the distance. Takes him a moment to realize it's AK-47 fire. Time to get in the car and hope that the little gas they managed to put in the car would get them to a truck stop down the freeway a ways. Markarth. In Skyrim. The layout is confusing. The quests suck. And both the Silver Bloods and the Forsworn are a-holes. Good enough for Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince of Domination and Enslavement of Mortals. The guy lives in a dirty basement in an abandoned house. He doesn't have the best standards. Reading. PA. It feels like one big bad neighborhood. I saw Louis C.K. there on his last tour, and when the special came out, 2017, he specifically called out reading for being shitty. I grew up in Southeast PA. One time in elementary school we had an assignment where we had to create a tourism brochure for the city of Reading, PA. I am certain that our teacher was at least partially motivated by the laughs. Flint, NY. Had my car stolen a couple years ago and they found it there, ditched in a field. Was only there for an hour before I heard gunshots. There was almost a fight that broke out at the gas station when I stopped to get gas before leaving. Now the water isn't even safe. Seriously, avoid Flint. It's like Detroit's toilet. Chicago resident. Went to school for a year at Kettering in Flint. Part of freshman orientation was making sure that kids understood not to resist if they were held up or mugged, even if they were just crossing the street and leaving campus to go to the gas station, and it advised students always travel in pairs. It's poo-poo city. Even a full decade prior to the water crisis there, the RAs warned students in the freshman dorm to never drink from the water fountains found throughout the building. They would commonly stop draining correctly or break down in some other way, and the still water that would hang around while they were being fixed was not of a color that any sane person would even consider drinking. Bakersfield, CA. Some of the places in this thread are bad because of the high crime. Some of them are here because they smell bad, or you can't drink the water. Bakersfield is a functioning town. It has reasonable employment. The roads work. The crime rate is somewhat high, but nothing too out of the ordinary. So why is it on here? It is the closest thing to purgatory I have ever seen. It's 2 hours from anything. It's in the middle of the Californian desert between San Jose and LA. It's hot, flat, and all the potentially interesting views are covered by oil pumps. There is nothing to do in Bakersfield, other than your odd movie theater or maybe bowling alley. But surely it is cheap and affordable to live here? No, it's not. $1,600 for a 2BR apartment. Bakersfield is the worst. Camden, New Jersey. We once visited a friend there who's doing everything possible to escape it. As noted previously, he says Camden is the dirtiest, ugliest city he's ever seen. Niagara Falls, NY. 20 years ago, it was shithole. I drove through it recently and it is now a shithole with awkwardly placed casino in it. Yeah, especially when Niagara Falls, Ontario is right there to see and so much better. I think it might be the tackiest place I've ever been to though. I found it tacky, but not too tacky. It was a pretty enjoyable place, but I am kinda glad we left after 3-4 days, since we'd seen just about everything there. Dubai. I got a locals tour and got to see the labor building the fancy skyscrapers and a small part of the conditions they endure. It was heartbreaking. Add in the dust everywhere and the abhorrent manners of the so-called elite classes, and I know I never want to go again. I will say the pauper's meal I got to have with the local and his friend's family was wonderful, as was the 1 dirham ferry trip. Amarillo, Ning, truckers, strip joints and the stench of cattle, all stuck between 2 of the world's worst tourist traps, the Big Texan and Cadillac Row. Ridiculous. Bakersfield, California, a basin of pollution, meth, and absolutely nothing to do. The worst city in CA hands down. I'm happy to see that Detroit isn't one of the top cities on this list. We've had a rough past, but there have been a lot of improvements lately. Detroit is like Berlin after the war. You have the safe sectors around the stadiums, Greek town, etc. But venture too far off into the Soviet sector, East Side, and you are literally gambling with your life. The Kuta area of Bali, Indonesia. I've been to a lot of Asian countries, and sort of got the gist of what the cities were like. But Dakmi Kuta was unbearable, just full of drunken Westerners, particularly Aussies abusing the locals. Gives us other Australians a hard rap when visiting there. The old story of Bali would be a nice place if it weren't for all the Australians, bogans combined with cheap flights and access to cheap credit. My takeaway from all this is there are no bad cities in Japan. From what I saw, not really. For the most part, the worst you're gonna see is empty towns. Delhi, hands down a complete ducking hole. I explored the whole of Rajasthan, headed to Mumbai and then down through Goa. Out of all those cities, towns and villages, including Agra, which is notoriously hellish, Delhi is by far the worst place I have been on the planet. Unfortunately, I was forced to return in order to fly home. I did try to change our flights so we could head home from Mumbai rather than return, but it wasn't possible. Delhi is a complete clusterfuck assault on the senses. I hit 2 people in 12 hours who tried to rob my partner, and when you got back to the hotel at night where my legs were bare from wearing shorts, it was covered in stinking dust. Also, it's the only place I saw a guy standing in the road jacking off to oncoming traffic. Kingston, Jamaica. Third world poverty, just a dirty, crime-filled area. Kids begging in the streets in the middle of the day, people urinating out in the open, homeless everywhere. Jamaica in general, definitely stay in a group, on a guided tour. You do not explore the island on your own. You will be robbed. The island resorts paint a very different picture. Yet I don't really get what people expect when they go to Jamaica. It is well known to be a place full of violence and gang warfare. Do they expect friendly island types saying "Ee mon, have a coconut and some ganja" amidst some reggae and a dancing mango? East St. Louis. I hate East St. Louis like Ted Mosby hates New Jersey. It literally has its own smell. You cross the river and your nose is like bam, welcome to hell. This will probably get buried. I was teaching English for a year in Pattaya and was approached by a local gang. At first they asked me about the girls I was teaching, aged 11. Things like who had a home, Who didn't? etc. How would I know? After I badly blew them off, they started hanging out around the school. I told the police, who essentially told me not to worry about it. Fast forward one of my last weeks there last June, and my GF is visiting from England. We are at a small dive bar and I go to use the bathroom. I stumble into a stall and see the same officer getting oral sex from someone who couldn't have been older than 15. Sickus. Never going back. Beijing. Most polluted place I've ever been. The smog was inside the hotel lobby. Worst drivers on earth. Lines on the roads and even suggestions. People just follow the cars in front of them. By inches, not feet. So many accidents, they deserve it. Crowds. Holy duck, it's like if Disneyland had a free admissions day on a major holiday, and nobody has any sense of personal space. I might have gotten laid 3 times walking down the street and wouldn't have noticed. And because of that insane pollution, I was sick for 3 weeks, coughing up whatever that shit is that's floating in their air. Yeah, duck Beijing. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.